54-го отдельного комендантского Преображенского полка, удостоены звания.
Russia is celebrating Victory Day today. Compared to previous years, though, this year's parade was a scaled-down affair. Apparently, the Russians did not have enough weapons on display. They've launched a fresh wave of strikes on Ukraine. Meanwhile, in Ukraine, a dangerous situation is developing. There is panic in Zaporizhzhia. This is the town that hosts Europe's biggest nuclear power plant, and it has been a battleground through the course of this war. A very dangerous situation, raising a serious risk of nuclear catastrophe. The plant itself has been hit several times. There have been repeated warnings and pleas to stop fighting near this plant, but they've all fallen on deaf ears. Soon after the war began, Russia took control of the nuclear plant. But now it is evacuating its people. Russians living in this area have been told to leave. 18 settlements are being evacuated, 1-8. We're talking about tens of thousands of Russians. They're leaving amid growing anxiety. There are fears of a quote-unquote severe nuclear accident. That's the assessment of the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency. It's the nuclear watchdog of the United Nations, and it has sounded a fresh warning. The evacuations are happening in this area, in southern Ukraine, in Zaporizhzhia. This region has many towns and villages. Russia controls a part of this area. Last week, local Russian officials issued instructions. They said 18 towns and villages must be evacuated. Why? Apparently, the fighting is about to intensify here. The order said that Ukraine is trying to break through Russian defenses, so people here must leave. How many people? At least 70,000, according to one estimate. As you can imagine, this has led to chaos and panic, especially in this town. It's called Enerhodar. It's close to the nuclear plant. Many people who work at the plant live here. The IAEA says evacuations have begun in Enerhodar. Let me in fact quote from their report. The general situation in the area near the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant is becoming increasingly unpredictable and potentially dangerous. We must act now to prevent the threat of a severe nuclear accident and its associated consequences for the population and the environment. Now, this is as clear as a warning gets, and recent developments bear this out. Reports say there's been regular shelling over the past week. IAEA experts are unable to visit this area. It's not clear what's happening at the plant. According to the IAEA, the operating staff is still there, and they're doing what they can to ensure safety, but they're operating in very difficult circumstances. To give you an idea, let me take you back to an old interview. 2 months back, the chief of the IAEA visited this plant. His name is Rafael Grossi. He said he had to cross a minefield to get to the plant. And remember, this is a nuclear power plant, and there are mines around it. Listen to what he said.
I was able to make an assessment of the damage that the plant sustained, especially on the attacks and the shelling on November 20th, which was quite severe. So that was for me quite important to have a look at that. These affected 2 reactors. So there is, wittingly or unwittingly, reactors were hit, or the buildings of the reactors were hit or in the vicinity. So this is very serious. This is very serious.
And what is the situation at the plant? Reports say the reactors are not producing electricity, but they're still loaded with nuclear material. The plant's power lines are damaged. It is running on diesel generators. This keeps the cooling systems online. And you don't have to be a nuclear scientist to know that this is a very dangerous situation to be in. The latest reports say gas stations in the area are running dry. Grocery stores have empty shelves and ATMs are out of cash. And that's not all. The Ukrainian army is conducting radiation drills. Basically, they're preparing for a nuclear disaster.
As we are amid a full-scale invasion, the risk of a chemical or nuclear attack by the enemy is always there. That's why we are trained to detect toxic substances and radiation levels. We have received up-to-date equipment that is much better than our previous devices.
Neither Russia nor Ukraine can afford to ignore this. If disaster strikes, both sides will be responsible, and both sides will suffer losses. Incidentally, Russia is celebrating Victory Day today to mark their victory over Nazi Germany in the Second World War. A march was held on Russia's Red Square. Nuclear weapons were on display. President Vladimir Putin gave a speech. He used the occasion to defend the war.
We are proud of the participants in the special military operation, of all those who are fighting on the front line, who provide support under fire, who rescue the wounded. There is nothing more important now than your own combat effort. The security of the country rests on you today. The future of our statehood and our people depend on you. You are fulfilling your military duty with honor. You are fighting for Russia.
Meanwhile, Ukraine is getting more military aid, equipment worth $1.2 billion from the US. The package will include air defense systems, ammunition, and funds for training. Reports say Ukraine is preparing for a counter-offensive. It could be launched soon, but if the situation in Zaporizhzhia worsens, Ukraine might be forced to deal with a different crisis altogether, a nuclear catastrophe.